Hello, everybody, and welcome to week one of college writing. Um, so, I do my best to make these videos as interesting as possible, but eh. Um, just be sure, watch the whole thing, but don't necessarily think that you have to watch it all at once. You could stop and start, it'll be okay. As long as you get through the whole thing eventually, all will be fine. I look forward to meeting you over the next few days. But for now, let's get going with this week's lecture. Here's what I'm going to talk about this week. First, what the hell is college writing? What does it even mean? Then I'm going to talk about what rhetoric is. And then finally, we're going to talk about the importance of genre. Genre is a term and an idea that I'm going to come back to over and over again over our semester. So I want to start off with it right away so that you get some idea of what the heck I'm talking about. I try to go pretty fast on these so that you don't get too bored. But if I go too fast, that's what in person discussions are for. Come to class, say, Garcia, what the hell did you mean by this? And I will happily tell you. All right. Why do we write? There are four main reasons. There are far more, but there are four basic reasons to write. And all of these, in some way, shape, or form, are dealt with under the umbrella term of college writing, and most especially are dealt with in this class. All right. So the first one is we write to communicate. That's probably the most basic one, the one that we would kind of automatically think of. I write something, you read it, you understand what I have written, vice versa. All right. We write to communicate, tell each other ideas, stories, whatever we need to do. We write to persuade. All right. This is a bit of a controversial statement, but I stand by it. All writing is persuasive writing. And over the course of the semester, I want you to keep that idea in the back of your head. All writing is persuasive writing, right? Now, obviously, something like an op-ed or an analysis paper, you have a thesis, you've got something you're trying to prove, and the whole paper is about trying to prove that thing. So that's obviously a persuasive thing. But what about like a story? Well, a fictional story is trying to persuade you to believe it. It's trying to persuade you to feel things. You read something and you feel love or pity or disgust. Those are emotions that were solicited by the author, persuading you to feel those things. Right? Heck, even when my wife writes a to-do list for me and says, "Here's your to-do list," well, she is persuading me to do the things on that to-do list. All writing is persuasive. Next, we write to reflect. This is a really important aspect of writing, and it's going to be crucial to you as you proceed in your college career. You want to use writing as a way to filter and figure out what is going on in your classes. We write to think about what happened. We write to understand what happened. We write so we don't forget. We write to remember something properly. So, writing is an essential tool for college, not just because it's how we communicate to professors that we have learned something, but it's how we ourselves take the information that professors give us and absorb it into our collective understanding. All right. Okay. I just thought of something, but I'm going to wait for our in face-to-face for it. And the last thing we're going to do is we write to think. Now, a lot of people don't think about this tool for writing either, but it's actually really important. It is not necessary to write and know what you're going to end up saying by the end of it. Writing is an excellent way to figure out what you think, to figure out your opinion. So you sit down and you just start writing about something, and all of a sudden you start narrowing in on, oh, this might be my opinion on something. This might be what I'm trying to prove. Do not feel like you have to know something before you write about it. Writing is one of the, we know from research, one of the main ways that we think. So when we write, feel free to write without any expectation of communication, of persuasion, of reflection. Just write to figure out your ideas. All right? So, what is college writing? A lot of people think of college writing as a product. Look, I have written a paper. It is college writing. That is not what college writing is at all. College writing is a skill and a process. Now, this is good news for us because a lot of people think that they can't write, that they're bad writers. This is completely untrue. And hopefully over the course of this semester, you're going to believe me. Right? High school has some big things to blame in this area because, and I taught high school for years and years and years, so I know where I'm coming from on this. High school is all about timed writing, right? Because of the ACT and the SAT and AP tests and everything else, mainly what gets focused on in high school writing is, what can you spit out in 45 minutes? Well, the real answer in terms of writing about what you can do in 45 minutes is always the same. Garbage. There's no good writing has ever been produced in 45 minutes. That's not how writing works. Writing is not some magical ability that you either have or you don't. Sure, some people are better at writing essays in 45 minutes, but ultimately that's kind of a pointless skill because that's not what real writing is. Professional writers do not write a book in a day. Professional writers barely write a page in a day. Professional writers are people that write something and then go back and they fix it. And then they go back and they fix it again. And they continue to fix it until it is good. So you, yes, you have the ability to be an excellent writer. Because the only thing that an excellent writer needs to do is not stop writing until it's done. That's why I say it's a skill. You write it down, you fix it. You write it, you fix it, you fix it, you fix it, and you keep fixing it, right? And that's where all good writing comes from, all right? Stephen King, when he writes a novel, he writes it, and then he spends, 3 times the amount that he spent just putting everything down on paper, fixing everything. That's what all professional writers do. That's what all good writers do. So please don't fall into the trap of already starting college thinking that you are a bad writer. You are not. You are just a writer who has not been told that good writing comes from doing it over and over again until it's right. So the whole point of this class is to teach you how to revise a paper again and again until it is good. And then we're all good writers. So, writing is a skill, writing is a process. Good writing comes from revision and reflection. That's what we were just talking about. Good writing comes from writing crap, fixing it, reading it again, reflecting and thinking about, okay, what works, what doesn't, deciding what works and what doesn't from that reflection, fixing it, and doing it again and again and again. College writing is a genre, not a product. Now, we're going to get into genres here in a little bit, but basically what I mean by that is that in addition to being a process, college writing is about revising and fixing until it's good. College writing is a specific kind of writing with rules and steps that you need to know. And once you know, they're pretty easy to follow. And don't worry, I'm going to be very clear about what those rules are and how to follow them. So, rhetoric. I said a few minutes ago that all writing is persuasive writing, and I stand by that, and I'm totally willing to have arguments with people in our face-to-face discussions about whether that's true or not. But, so get ready. But when we talk about writing persuasively, what we're talking about is the idea of rhetoric. Rhetoric is defined as the art of writing persuasively. It's the study of how language works to persuade. So in other words, if I wanted to figure out why a particular poem is so effective in making me feel good, I would study it and I would look at how the language creates that feeling, and that study would be a study of rhetoric, right? Now, writing comes from essentially 2 different things that coalesce, right? Writing is what you say and then how you say it, right? So, I could say I am tired. That's what I want to say. I'm tired. But how I say it is, kind of boring and obvious. So if I want to be a little more interesting, instead of just saying I am tired, I might, use a metaphor. I am, I am, uh, I can't come up with a metaphor. Oh, I am a sloth. Boom. I have not only said that I am tired, but I have said I am tired in a way that is specific and evocative. That is writing. So when we study writing in this class, and we're going to do this all semester, we're going to be looking at both. What do we want to say? What is our opinion? What are our ideas? What are we trying to persuade people to do? And then we're going to be looking at how we say those things. And good writing is writing that connects the two, right? So that what we say and how we say it are both leading to the same basic idea. That is good writing. So, how do I know what to write? Well, essentially, knowing what to write is a combination of rhetoric and audience expectation, right? You've got something you want to say. You know how you want to say it. Then you add in what the audience is expecting of you. Audience expectation is part of how we get to genre, right? Now, as a word, genre can be in any discipline, any academic discipline. It just means a category or classification based on a similar form, style, or subject matter, right? So when we talk about the romance genre, right, we know that genre has certain rules. It's got to involve a love story in some way. That's the key thing, right? Science fiction has to take place, in a different time or in a future time from where we are. There are basic rules about all writing. The same is true of college writing. College writing has basic ideas and rules that we follow that make it a genre. And once you understand, this is the key thing. Once you understand the genre of whatever assignment is given to you, in my class or any other class, once you understand the genre, half your work is done for you. You know what the paper wants, and you know the rules about how to get to what it wants. So, how do we determine a genre? When you're reading or writing a text, what do we do to determine the genre? Well, first, let's break this down into two extraordinarily broad categories. Academic writing, that's the kind of writing that you're going to do in most of your college classes. I say most because half the papers we write in this class are not academic writing. Your first assignment, your literacy narrative, not academic writing. But for the most part, you are going to be writing academic papers in class. And that genre has some specific rules, right? Academic writing requires formal and specific language, right? I say formal because now that formal does not mean pronouns. Pronouns are fine. Every year I have someone, is it okay if I use I and you in a paper? Sure. I don't know where the myth came from that you can't use pronouns, but you can, right? But formal means that you want to use language that is elevated, right? Correct, but elevated. And you want to use especially specific language. If I were writing an English paper, I would not want to say the word comparison. I would want to say metaphor or simile. I would want to be as specific as possible within that discipline, all right? And that's one of the most important factors of academic writing is a specificity of language. College writing is, academic writing are arguments. They're all arguments, right? You are interpreting something in some way, you are proving some scientific method, you are doing something that is an argument. So when you are writing an academic paper, you always need to remember, I am making an argument. And that means you need to be clear on what side of the argument you are on, and then all of your evidence should be pointed to proving your side of the argument, right? We get into argument later in the semester. We know a lot of argument later in the semester. But for right now, it's just important to know that academic writing, in all of your classes, you are expected to have an opinion, state that opinion, and prove it. And how do we prove it? With appropriate evidence. Now, appropriate evidence changes with different types of academic writing. But all academic writing requires evidence of some kind. And not only does academic writing require evidence of some kind, but it requires evidence that is citable. In other words, you have to come up with evidence that you can cite, that you can connect back to in the literature and say, boom, this is where I got this piece of information. So, appropriate evidence by citation, part of the academic writing genre. Finally, it's organized in a formalized manner. Next week, there'll be a short video on APA versus MLA versus Chicago style writing. All right, so I'll get into that more then. But just know that all academic writing is supposed to be organized in a fairly formal, specific way. All right. It's not the case so much these days, but like when I was in college, I got a 0 on a paper for not double spacing. All right, which sucks and should not happen, and I don't think will happen to you. But you still want to be sure that your formatting is right, because you don't want to give a professor any reason to knock points down. Now, non-academic writing is non-academic writing is everything else outside of the kind of college world. And of course, it involves various writing styles. Some non-academic writing has an explicit argument, others an implicit argument. Most fiction has an implicit argument, which just means that you don't state the argument, you just let the reader come to the argument from the writing that they're reading. There's a wide variety of evidence. Non-academic writing, you can use like personal history, you can use literature, you can use all sorts of stuff for evidence in non-academic writing that we don't have access to with academic writing. And of course, it's organized in a familiar style to the audience. That's one way that audience comes in, right? If you're writing a novel, then you know that you need to organize your story in such a way, you need to break it down in chapters, you need to do this in a way the audience can understand. If you're writing a letter to your mom, your organization might be radically different. All right, now, under academic writing, there are 3 really basic types of disciplines that you're going to be dealing with in college. All right, the sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. Now, I bring these up because these are all genres in and of themselves. So there's the genre of academic writing, and then under that, part of it is the genre of scientific writing, of social science writing, and of humanity writing, right? Now, if we go back and look at this list, all right, academic writing, these 4 rules apply to all of these. But then these have additional rules for what counts. So if I look at science, science is about, so the objective of all science is to use qualifiable data. That's the wrong word. I need to fix that. Quantifiable. I'm going to fix that. But quantifiable data to discover information about our physical world, which means that the goal of paper, of an argument in science, is to use data, math, and observation to prove something about the physical world. That's all any science is trying to do. All right. So you've got, geology, you've got physics, you've got biology. These are all different things in the physical world they're talking about. And of course, each genre will have some rules of its own. But for the most part, all of these sciences are using quantifiable data, math, and observation to discover truths about the physical world. That is the goal of scientific writing. So when you write a paper for, say, biology or chemistry, you know right off the bat, all right, the goal of this paper is to prove something with hard data about the physical world. And that makes building your thesis and deciding what your evidence will be a lot easier. Social sciences. Social sciences are a little weird. Social science is this weird kind of in-between of sciences and humanities, right? Social sciences treat information scientifically. They use the scientific process just like hard sciences. They use quantifiable data, but they also use qualifiable data, right? And they use, most importantly, statistical data. Social sciences are about humans and the human mind. This could be psychology. This could be sociology. It could be archaeology. Anything that is kind of dealing with human motivation, human wants, human desires. Right? Now, we can't use just like mathematical information on that. Although, of course, statistics are math. But we can't use just mathematical hard information on that. Sure, if a room is on fire, 99 people out of 100 are going to run away. But there's always one psycho who's just going to stand and watch it burn. So the best that social science can do is kind of interpret what a statistically large group of people might be doing and then use that for motivation. Social sciences also use a thing called a case study, where they just look at one person in detail. They document everything they do, and they try and give motivation and meaning to everything they do as another way to kind of prove ideas about social sciences. Now, again, social sciences is trying to discover information about our social world, how our mind works, how our connections with other people work. Finally, there's the humanities. Foreign languages, literature, English, history, all of these are humanities. The goal of humanities is to interpret and analyze information to determine meaning. So whereas science is looking at like mathematical data, humanity is looking at, as evidence, things that other people have created and trying to attach meaning to those created things, art, literature, etc. So, now that we know what each of these three major categories wants to say, it's objective, we can look at how each of the categories says it, evidence. With science, it's pretty exclusive, hard data and math. Observation is also acceptable here, but observation is basically saying you are observing the hard data. Right? With social science, we use statistical evidence and case studies. With humanities, we use analysis and interpretation of information. So, we might have a quote from a novel that we're going to interpret. We're going to interpret this quote. That is the type of evidence used. So now, as you go forward in your college life, look how easy this is. You're in a social science class. It's like you're taking a psych class. Most of you will take, or a lot of you are taking sociology. Let's go there. A lot of you are taking a sociology class. You know that the goal of sociology is to discover information about our social world. And you know that the way we do that is statistical evidence and case studies. Boom. It helps you come, because you know the genre, social science, academic writing, you know what is being expected of you to prove and the ways that you're allowed to prove it. This is the benefit of knowing the genre. So, when we practice with genre, and we're going to practice a little bit with it too, in person as well, but when we practice with genre, we're asking questions like, who's our audience? If our audience is a strictly academic audience, professors, academic journals, then you know you're probably writing an academic paper. If your audience is your parents, that's a totally different kind of writing. Might you have more than one audience? Sure. A lot of paper have. Your literacy narrative, in fact, in college, you have at least two audiences always. Because when you write a paper, you're supposed to be writing it for the academic world, but you're really writing it for your professor. And so you've got at least two audiences right there. Because you've got the audience of the academic world, which is who you're supposed to be kind of pretending to write to. And then you've also got the professor, the person who's actually grading your paper. Okay? So, but there can be more. So you want to look at, when you're looking at an assignment, when you're looking at a paper, who is the audience? Who wants to read this? Who is reading it? And why are they reading it? And what are they getting out of it? Does the assignment give you any clues? If you're in a sociology class, well, you know you're going to write a sociology paper. One of the best things you can do is if you're stuck with something, look at other sociology papers. Don't copy them, but look at them to get an idea of how they're doing things, of the way that they're making arguments, of the kinds of evidence they're using, and that can give you an idea of what you can do for your own paper. Right? What does the audience need? What do they want? What do they value? All right. A sociologist might value, social communication. So, what's most important to your audience? What do they not care about? Most Most of your biology, from an academic standpoint, your biology professors are great and they care about you as people. But when you're writing, your biology professors do not care about your personal feelings. They care about data and science. What kind of structure helps? So we're going to get to structure a little later this semester, but know that genre also helps you define structure. So, so to wind up everything, the genre of a text is dictated by the requirements of the audience. Genre tells us what to write, the thesis, and the kind of evidence we use. And genre tells us how to write it, the style and the kind of language we want to use. Which means genre tells us the rhetoric, connecting everything together like the glorious professor that I am. In class, we're going to talk about the shitty first draft. You have a paper that you're reading. One of your readings this week is a PDF called Shitty First Draft. It's one of the best pieces on writing ever, and we're going to talk about it in class. We talked about rhetoric and we talked about genre. So I hope you have a great semester. And one more thing before you leave. I know that I've talked forever. I do want to be sure that most of you are new to college. Most of you are freshmen in your first semester. I want to be sure you understand that I am someone who can help you, not just with getting through this class, but with all of your classes. If you're struggling in another class, if you're struggling with financial aid, if you're struggling with something else, please keep me in the loop. Let me know. I can either help you or I can find the people who will help you. And I'm way faster than, asking random people who you don't know. So have a great day. I look forward to meeting you this week.